swatching for the Albers vest by Sister Mountain. It's a new pattern that just came out. I'm about to frog my first swatch because it's terrible. So I just wanted to show you before I do. I had this idea of doing a black and white one. So this pattern, I know you're seeing a black and white image, but it's a 3-color pattern, and basically you're doing this textured stitch with one color all the way throughout, and then you're alternating the background. And I thought it would be cool to do black and white, which I do think is a great idea. I just think this red is not right. It's too pale, maybe? I don't know. Maybe, I mean, I think I could get away with red and white if this was a different color. Yeah. Anyway, back to the drawing board for me.
Hi, how are you today? My name is Shannon. Welcome to my Cast On With Me series. In this series, I take you into a deep dive into my soon-to-be latest cast on. I spend a little time knitting, where there'll just be music playing, so you can also knit along, and we just chat like we're hanging out and knitting. I hope you enjoy this. But I will start with a bit of a prologue, I guess, if you will, into why I made the choices that I did and how I came to discover the pattern. So you got a little intro of this project. So I am going to be knitting the Albers. There it is. I'll actually put a picture on screen from her pattern page so you can see the colors that she chose. I'm pretty sure it's like navy and greens, something like that. So it's the designer's name is Claire Mountains, and she goes by Sister Mountain. Albers vest, or I think it's just called Albers, actually. So yes, this just recently came out. I want to say like maybe a month ago, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, something like that. I was attracted to this pattern when Emma of Woolly Mammoth Fiber Company was test knitting for Claire, and I was just waiting for Emma to say the pattern was released, because I bought it probably within a day or so of it being released, because I just really, really loved what Emma was doing. And I think when Emma was knitting it, she gave some of the basic details I believe she did about it being a 3-color, 1 skein of each color. So it's a 3-color pattern or project. You can, for most of the sizes, I think most, if not all, you can get away with 1 color or 1 skein of each color sock weight. Except for like midway through the size range for the main color, you need more than 1 skein of sock weight yarn. So you would need like a skein and a half. So really efficiently uses up 3 coordinating colors. So I was like, wow, I definitely have yarn in my stash that will work for this. So you saw my first attempt. Before I move in to show you what I did do, what I am going to go with for this project, I wanted to just spend a minute to talk about the red wool. This is so lovely. I really needed an idea for what to do with this. This is 500 yards, sport weight of Lincoln long wool. I got it at Rhinebeck last year from this company called Lana Plantae Yarns, and I don't know where they are. In Maine. They're located in Maine. So it's Lana Plantae. It's so beautiful. It has like a really interesting halo. It is a bit like it feels a little scratchy, kind of soft, but a little rustic too. And I don't know. you know, I don't know. I would love to figure out something. I have to say too, like this style, I bought it this way. It was in this kind of cake. And this style of cake was really awkward when I was swatching. So I might recake it into two balls using my ball winder at some point. Not right now, but I love it. I need an idea for that. If you have any. All right. I've been looking a lot at my stash, especially my single skeins, because I have destashed 50 of them. Some doubles, some 2 skeins, but mostly, and some two sweater quantities out of that. But say like 40 or so single skeins. So I've been looking a lot at them. And after that red yarn failed in the black and white, I was like, I think I need something green or maybe something blue. I think that would look pretty with the black and white or yellow, but I don't have any yellow single skeins. Oh, actually, that's not true. I do have a yellow single skein. I didn't even think to try it, but I love this. So I pulled this out. I pulled some green out of my stash, and this is what I got. The green is a speckle yarn. Variegated speckle yarn from GarnStories. It's been in my stash a really long time. The colorway name, I love it. It's called Soap Opera. So this is what it looks like in the cake. It is like this sort of slimy green with turquoise. So sections that were like this slimy sort of pond scum green, green algae, turquoise, and then a brighter, more fluorescent green. I think you can see it best here. You can see all 3 of those colors. And then there are definitely speckles on top. So I've had this in my stash for probably 5 years or more. A long time. I remember as I said, it's from GarnStories. It's like her soft merino base, so it is a superwash. And I remember buying a mystery pack from her. Like I bought a lot of mystery packs when I, first became enamored with indie dyers. Like I'm sure many of us did. But yeah, I knit this, and within a few rows or when I started to do the black and I was knitting in the green, I was like, oh, this looks so good. And then when I did a little bit of turquoise over here, I just really love it. I love turquoise. It's one of my favorite colors. So there's a couple other things that are going on here. So let me talk to you about the other wools. The white is yarn that I've also had in my stash for a very long time. This is, I don't think I have the ball band. This is Green Mountain Spinnery. I was trying to remember what it was. Their Lana base, which is a 2-ply. And I think it's just called wool. I don't think it's a particular breed. I think they get, Green Mountain Spinnery gets wool, small batches of wool from various farms and spins it together. And but it's quite soft. I actually used this to make a graphic black and white sweater recently. You might remember it if you've been around a little bit or at all this year. And I had originally purchased like 1,600 yards of the white and I think 800 yards of the black, same yarn. And I used up all the black in that sweater. I don't remember the name of it right now, but if I do, if I remember in editing, I'll put a picture on screen of me in the sweater. But that sweater, oh my gosh, it's bugging me right now that I don't know the name. That particular sweater, I held a strand of white mohair with it. Oh, it was a Marianne Isager Scottish check. That's what it was. It's that. And that pattern is written so that for the white, you hold a strand of mohair with your wool, but for the black, you don't. You don't hold any mohair. You just knit it. And I thought that was a really cool idea. And I thought I might try that with this sweater, this vest. So what you're seeing in the swatch does have the mohair. I'm holding mohair with the white, but not with the black or the green. I really like it. It just kind of gives it a little extra texture. Now, mind you, I thought I was using the Lincoln long wool, which also has some texture, but that ended up not working color-wise for me. I just didn't like it. If you liked it, great, but it wasn't something that I liked. I ended up having to buy, like, I didn't have enough white mohair in my stash, so I ended up buying some, and I bought an inexpensive mohair, and I don't love the feel of it on the skein, but once it's washed, it really softened up. So it is from Webb's. It's called Valley Yarns. It's from Webb's, which is a store in a big, massive yarn warehouse in Massachusetts, just outside of Amherst, Mass. One of my sons went to school in Amherst. So anyway, it's a 72% mohair, 28% silk, pretty standard. And kind of rough on the skein, but softens up really nicely after being blocked. So this is a block swatch. So I'm doing that. And then my black, not the Lana, because I ran out of that. I just had a dab left. Instead, this is leftover black yarn from another vest, actually, that I made last year, the Rhinebeck, Andrea Mowry's Rhinebeck vest. Also don't remember the name. I don't know what's wrong with me. Get in front of a camera, or I'm a teacher, so get in front of a classroom and start talking, and I don't remember how to spell or do math. Apparently, I forget all the things when I'm here. So anyway, leftover Les Garçons British Sport. So this is actually a sport weight called Moira's Black Rose. And this is a Masham BFL mix that I think they have a partnership with a mill over in England. So that's hence the British sport or British wool. So I've only tried their sport. Is that right? Yeah, I think I've only tried this. I've purchased the sport from them twice. I haven't tried their DK. They do have a DK of this. So it's a really lovely black. It's really hard for indie dyers to get a true black, but this is really, really pretty. Like, really awesome job, guys. Looks great. The black that I had, the black wool that I had from Green Mountain Spinnery was a natural black, a sheepy natural black. So it was a little lighter. It was more like that really rich chocolate brown. So those are my two main color, contrast color 1, contrast color 2. Very excited about this. And it's going to be, I think it'll be pretty fast. Even though this is sport weight though too, I think holding this with the mohair is making these be pretty even in terms of the thickness. And then this is standard 400 yards, 100 grams. But it doesn't seem to make a difference in the pattern. So I think I'm good. I think I'm in good shape. All right. Gauge. I am a loose knitter, so I almost never get gauge. It's a struggle. The only person whose gauge I match pretty regularly is Stephen West, because he's also a loose knitter. So I went down a needle size. This calls for knitting on needle US size 6 or a 4mm needle. I went down to a 3.75 or a US 5. I always put like little yarn overs so that I can remember the size. And I am so close. I'm slightly off. So across 4 inches, I'm supposed to have in pattern, I'm supposed to have 25 stitches. I have 24. And then my row count is also off by a little bit. I'm supposed to have in 4 inches 36, I think the pattern is calling for. Nope, it's over here. But I get 32. So it's very, very close. And I think the row count is fine because I don't think there's any specific places where you're counting rows. Instead, you're just measuring the inches or centimeters. So there's that. So I just decided I'm going to go ahead and make size 4, which is supposed to be about a 43.5. She recommends about 1.5 inches to 4 inches of positive ease. So that would hit right just perfect. It looks like using with my 24 inch or 24 stitches per 4 inch gauge, I would get like a 44.5 inch or so. So that's fine. It's going to give me like 3 inches of positive ease. So, well, good. So yeah, that's how I came to be here. I have my needle. So for the ribbing, this is a bottom up. So I'm going to start with knitting the ribbing in the round. And it is a 1x1 rib. And she is recommending that we use alternating cable cast on, which I assume, so when you do cable cast ons, you're making knit stitches. So I guess alternating, I didn't even look it up. Pause. I'm going to look it up. Because I'm thinking that it's 270 stitches for me to cast on for my size, and that's a lot of stitches to do long tail. And if I do mess it up, which I often mess up when I'm doing long tail, I mess up not having enough yarn. It is it's going to be a bit of a bother to pull out the mohair. And so I think I understand. I know what cable cast on is, so I imagine I can understand what alternating cable cast on is. So let me just look it up. All right, I think I got it. So alternating cable cast on. That's the cast on that Claire is recommending. So I'm gonna give it a shot. It is different than I thought, because you insert the needle between two stitches when you're adding a stitch, not into the stitch. So, all right, 270 stitches. This is going to take me a little while. So this is our time to knit together. And I might talk to you a little bit from time to time, if you don't mind. Oh, so before I completely disappear into this work, you start with cable cast on. You start with a slip knot on the needle, and then you knit. I'll just do it. You knit in to the stitch, and instead of slipping the slip knot off the needle, you put the stitch that's on your working needle back over onto the working needle, and now I have 2 stitches. So that's how that works. And then to purl, you go back through between the stitches, pull the yarn through, and put that on the needle. And you do that same routine all the way through. So knitting, this is the part that I didn't know about. I didn't know that you put your needle between stitches. I thought you put it into the stitch. So I'm going to do a few of these and see what I think. don't know if I showed this, if I cut this out or not, but I went to grab my glasses so I could see the edge nice and clearly and crisply, and I had taken all the stitches off the needle. Oh my goodness, wow. So I'm back to beginning again. Curious how this looks, because I usually do alternating cast on, alternating long tail. The thing with long tail cast on, which I know a lot of you know, with long tail cast on, you end up, you're basically making a knit stitch on the needle. So they're alternating long tail, you're making a knit stitch, then a purl stitch, a knit stitch, then a purl stitch. And you can do that for any type of ribbing. So if you're doing a 2x2, you do 2 knit stitches and then 2 purls. It's pretty nice. So I'm curious if this is going to be similar to that. It almost reminds me a bit of this one reminds me a bit of tubular, like the way tubular looks, tubular cast on. And I don't really like the fiddliness of tubular, so I'm not someone who does that cast on. It's just a lot of work for not very much bang, in my opinion. Because you have to get really close to a garment to see that cast on edge, and no one's getting that close to me. Okay. 2, 4, 6, 8. Alright, I'm doing a purl. Struggling getting that stitch. What I'm learning is this, you're best off if you just jump right to the next stitch than if you take time to fiddle with them. You lose momentum, it seems. So what I'm going to do is put a locking stitch marker every 20 stitches just to help me keep track, because it's a lot. 270. I lost count. All right, let me examine this edge and see. I'll show you too after I get a good close look at it. Just want to see how it looks. All right, I gotta say I don't love it. Here, take a close look. You definitely see knits and purls. It's super interesting. All right, I'm gonna knit a little bit. I'm gonna knit a couple rows and see if I like the results. Okay. I don't like it. I'll tell you why. Here's a pro with this versus alternating long tail. I won't run out of yarn. So alternating long tail, you need the tail that you make to be very, and I know for 270 stitches, this is going to be like down on the floor, like it's going to be a few arms lengths for me to get the number of stitches. But what's happening with this is I'm getting a ridge right there on the bottom. Wait, see it? Which I just don't love it. And then if we look at this side, which would be, I don't know, the right side? I don't know which is the right and which is the wrong, but it looks messy. And I think it's because you're making the yarn, you're pulling the yarn between stitches. I think this might work better. I looked at one website, so maybe there's multiple ways to do this. I think this could work better if I knit the stitches, if I did the knit and purl directly in the stitch and moved it over, like the way I learned on a Hohi pattern. So I'm gonna try that. You're getting like a little study of cast-ons right now. So with that version, like I learned it on a Hohi pattern, and maybe there's just different versions of this same thing. So I'm gonna try that version. And that is when you like actually stick the needle into the loop that's on the stitch before it, and you do the same exact thing where you just slide over and add that on. All right, now I've got a knit stitch and a purl stitch, and now I'm going to do a knit stitch, same thing, into the stitch instead of from the side, because I mean if you go in between, you're like pulling, the yarn is like making this weird kind of lean, which I don't appreciate. Knit, purl. All right, yes, knit. I learned how to knit on straight needles, not on needles in the round, because I learned how to knit in the early 80s, and I'm so used to when stitches are sliding to just jam the end of the needle down into my leg or on the armchair or whatever. But there is no end of the needle on these. Okay. All right, so this actually looks more like a real, like the knit stitch just appears. Yeah, I like this look much better. I'm not getting that hard line that I was getting with the other version where you pick up the stitch between the two stitches. So yeah, this is nicer. This I could live with. See what I mean? Like there's not a hard line. A knit stitch is just ending in a knit stitch and like a crisscross. There's not a hard line going across the bottom of the ribbing. All right, so that would be the alternating cable cast on, inserting the needle into the previous stitch, not in between the previous two stitches. Okay, versus long tail, which like I said, it's going to be arms and arms lengths. Okay, so let me go ahead and actually do the cast on now. And as predicted, the mohair is causing some lovely knots and things. So this is the tail end. I'm just going to break it and we'll just keep going. So starting again with a slip knot, and now I'm going to keep track. Now I'm going to keep track. It's so hard to not just do the long tail cast on that I'm used to. I really just want to do that because it's cozy, comfortable. You're making a knit stitch right on the needle. excited to push yourself to do something new though, right? Okay. Things happen. It's a few days later from the first part that you were watching. I had to shut the camera off to take care of a couple things, and when I came back to my cast on, I realized that I made a mistake. And so when I went to rip it out, I couldn't. The mohair was just too tightly enmeshed with the yarn, the row below it, or the way, I don't know. Anyway, it wouldn't rip out. So I had to start all over. And in the course of starting all over, I'm working away now on it. I chose not to re-record me trying to cast it on, because I think I pretty much went through the process of casting on before. I want to just comment on the alternating cable cast on. So there's a couple things that struck me about it. One is that when you're building it, you're working left to right. Your left is over here, right? Left to right. So you're working left to right instead of right to left. So if I were to do alternating long tail cast on, I would be working right to left. So I'd be working across. So I'd be building the cast on stitches on this needle, on the needle, the working needle, right? Because I'm an English knitter. The left needle is my stationary needle. The right needle is my working needle. Alternating cable cast on, you're building the stitches on the stationary needle. So it goes in the opposite direction. So what I found was that the front, so when I got to the end of all the cast on stitches, 270, and the reason I keep talking about 270 stitches is because I knit a lot of fingering weight sweaters, and they're never 270 stitches. They're usually around 240, 255, maybe 260, 270 is really high. So I hope this isn't a baggy bottom of the sweater, but I mean, I'm following the spec, and the spec looks right, so it should work. And my gauge is just off by a little bit, so a fraction, so to speak. So anyway, I realized that what was going to be the front side was going to have a little bit of a weird ridge. Do you see it right there? Like, I don't know. I don't love like the look of that. Where on what was facing me as I was doing the work looks like this, which I think is cleaner looking, right? That versus that. Do you see it? Doesn't it seem like there's a little bit more of a pronounced ridge? Again, it's very small, and people have to get pretty close to see the difference, but it was bugging me enough so that what I ended up doing, so when I ended up like knitting the direction, my normal direction from the back side, and it's rib, so rib is reversible. And when I knit around one row, I switched directions and went back the other way so that I could have and then I put a stitch marker so that I could know which was the front face, and I wouldn't get confused with that. And I just nudged over a stitch, so you could see that I have a little bit, like this stitch is a little bit, this row column is a little bit longer than all the rest, but it's also the one that has the little slip knot from casting on. So I'm gonna I'm sure I can smooth all of that out in blocking when I weave this end in. Prior to blocking the sweater, and then I block it, it should all work out just fine. So this is considered cast on. This was a very different cast on with me than I usually do. I probably should have read through the pattern and understood at least the beginning of the pattern, and understood the particular cast on that was being requested, and made a decision about which cast on method I was going to use. I have to say, like, there were many times in the process of doing this alternate cable cast on that I really was going to throw in the towel and just go back to my long tail cast on, my usual. But I powered through, and I'm glad I did, because I learned about it. And yeah, it's hard to know, when I was going to say, when a designer doesn't give you a tutorial herself, like, it's hard to know whether or not you're doing what they intended necessarily. But I think she may have linked someone else's tutorial, and I probably just didn't pay attention to that. It's supposed to be very stretchy, but it doesn't appear to be very stretchy to me. I think alternating long tail is more stretchy, so I'm just trying to give it a little stretch. And I mean, will it stretch out to rib? Oh, maybe this is why there's so many stitches, because it's not as stretchy as it could be. I don't know. Having just come off of a failed project, my traveler hoodie, which I frogged since I last videotaped, I really hope this is I hope this is successful, this project. Yeah, it's hard to, gotta be easy on yourself. Give yourself some grace when you frog, when you figure out it's time to frog a project, or I've completely finished projects and then decided to frog them for whatever reason. I completely finished a pair of socks, wore them a couple times, and then frogged them and re-knit new socks with them. So it can shake your confidence if you're if you're new to this, so new to knitting, or maybe new to even frogging. It's a little bit of a maybe it's, you're in this like sort of liminal space where you're not really sure what's gonna happen next. So yeah, I hope this works. I'm down to just 2 projects on the needles, which for me is very few. I usually have anywhere from at least 3, if not as many as 5 on the needles at any given time. And right now I don't have anything mindless, any like easy peasy knit to make except the socks that I'm making. And so yeah, I'm probably gonna have socks done next time I do a full Knitter's Life episode. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Cast On with me, despite it being sort of weird and different from my usual. And yeah, I'll share more. I'll have more to talk about with this project in my next Knitter's Life. I also have to say, all of these stitches, I keep freaking out that perhaps I've done a twist, like twisted them somewhere. But I've checked it, I know, like 5 times, and it's fine. But I am still paranoid every time I see it curl around, like until I get a good amount of rib stitches done, and I can tell that it is not crisscross somewhere. I will probably just have this like, oh gosh, moment every single time I see it curl around my needle. All right, I'm gonna end this here. I know it wasn't as much knit with me time as we usually get, but I'll be back with another one of these sometime soon. Take care. Bye.